So I'll try.
So hello. I'm going to be bringing a pin onto myself and our co-host for today. Welcome to the Coincidence Cafe. This is a monthly series on the third Saturday. We're now entering our third year of doing these monthly series, and we have new co-hosts all the time. So those of you who are with us, if you'd like to co-host, you can always message me here in the chat or send an email through the Zoom link that you have. And let me know if you'd like to help host a future cafe. We do new topics each time. And we just have a few basic ground rules that we observe in the Zoom meeting. We ask everybody to keep what's shared in the breakout sessions. We might go with 2 or 3 other colleagues here into smaller group conversations. Please keep their stories private. You might share something you learned from the story, but you wouldn't say, Anna Helene told me this story in which blah, 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 blah. You would leave the name off, and you would try to make it so that their privacy is respected. That way, whatever you choose to share in the breakout room, you know that others are also going to not identify you in your story later. It's up to you to share. And when we come back to debrief those breakouts, if you love one of your colleagues' stories, please invite them to share it rather than telling it for them. Because when we come back into full group, if you prefer not to share the story to the full group, that's also perfectly fine. So we just let people share what they're comfortable sharing. And we ask just share, in my own experience, I've noticed this versus making sort of blanket statements for others, because we all have different curiosities and theories about how this all works, but nothing quite definitive yet. So this is a space of exploration rather than sort of definitive knowing. And I think our hosts, David and Liliane, are wonderful colleagues here to take us on a deeper exploration of these things. And I just pass it over to the two of you. And David, can you move just a little bit closer or get your camera over?
Actually, I will, but our goal is to have Liliane speak first, and I disappear, and then I'll pop in.
Yeah, so, okay, very good.
And I go wherever she tells me, so I'm out now.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Liliane. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. Good morning, everybody, or depending on your time in your part of the world, good afternoon or good night. So many people seek simple yet powerful ways to experience greater awareness, peace, and grace in today's hectic world. Would you like to have the tools to gain insights and thrive, to create a life that's more joyful and meaningful? In the next few minutes, I'll share discoveries I've made that can put you on this path. First, a quick bit about me. I had a particularly painful childhood with physical and emotional abuse. From my earliest memories, I've always had unseen forces who have supported me and guided me and even saved my life on at least one occasion. And from my earliest adulthood, I was repeatedly encouraged to become an energy healer, but for a number of reasons, I fought the idea until my late 40s. As I followed my mentors and shamans through years of studies, I became aware of the existence and the importance of spirit guides and angels. And due to a life-threatening medical condition just a few years back, I became motivated to do a life review that led, among other things, to writing Wings from Above. So let me begin with an important reality you are always receiving guidance from the universe, whether or not you are aware of it. It's easy to overlook these signs and synchronicities, the clues we need to gain insight and thrive. Here, I must emphasize that our spirit guides and angels are always there and always ready to communicate with us, even when we are not aware of them. If we keep our hearts open to the signs and synchronicities or guides and angels placed on our path, we can succeed in receiving their messages. I call them little miracles we receive each day. And in doing so, we will obtain the resources to help us navigate our life path. Let's start with the basics. Many authors talk about signs and synchronicities, but we'll focus on what they mean to me. I will focus on what it means to me for this short presentation. Signs are the universe's way of communicating with us, offering guidance and insight. Synchronicity, on the other hand, is the meaningful coincidence that aligns with our life journey. It could tell us we're moving in the right direction or warn us not to take a certain action. A classic example of signs could be something dramatic, such as a sudden feeling that you shouldn't step off a curb, or it could be much more subtle, such as a song or a scent that reminds you of a departed loved one. Similarly, a synchronicity could be thinking of someone you haven't thought of in a long time, only to have them call you on the spot. Or if it could be asking the universe for guidance and then receiving a reply through totally unexpected means, such as hearing someone say a phrase that perfectly captures the guidance you need to confirm you're moving in the right direction. So I have here a personal story that happened when I was in my late teen. I was in Paris riding the subway with a friend. It was late in the evening and it was very crowded. We stood holding a pole. When the subway entered my station, before getting ready to go to the door, I put my hand on my tiny evening bag hanging on my left side. It was totally flat, and it meant my wallet was gone. Without thinking, I turned around, I pushed the person standing behind me, then another one in front of her, then I grabbed the arm of a third person. She turned around holding my wallet in her hand. I grabbed it, stepped out of the metro, and stood there like a dummy. As the subway was leaving, I saw the thugs looking at me, stunned. So was my friend, and so was I. So now that we've touched on signs and synchronicities, we must ask ourselves, who is giving us this information? We are all surrounded by an invisible energy field that operates at frequencies outside our normal range of awareness. Some call this field a different dimension or multiple dimensions. Others refer to it as beyond the veil. And I go into depth into my book, but I don't have time to go into it today. So the most important question for our discussion is, who is out there? I believe that spirit guides and angels inhabit this invisible realm. Further, they are always there, if only we acknowledge them. They are not distant forces, but intimate companions on our life's journey. In my book, I recount moments when I felt their presence, gentle nudges, whispers of wisdom, or a profound sense of guidance. Even in our loneliest moment, we are never truly alone. These entities surround us, offering support. Understanding this connection transforms our perception of isolation and empowers us to navigate life's challenges with resilience and grace. Okay, now that we know who provide us signs and synchronicity, how do we contact them? First, we have to be open to receiving guidance and be aware of guidance being provided to us. How? It's a very straightforward answer. Our intuition is the gateway to being open and aware. It connects us with our guides and angels on the other side of the veil. There are a lot of ways to describe intuition, but to me, it's a feeling of knowing, a gut feeling, a knowing without knowing how we know. Of course, I'm not the only person to appreciate this. Early in the last century, Sigmund Freud stated, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created now a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So let us look at how we can make this gift work for us. I'll demonstrate by using a personal example. You have a story.
Yes, I'm going to pop in for this one because it's my story. Sure. Yeah, she allows me in her space. I'm very grateful. I have a very interesting story that happened also in Paris. We were there on one of our many visits, and we found some sales going on. Liliane needed some cash so she could buy some shoes. I had to go find the cash. I went to an ATM machine, which was we were in the very busy part of town, and it was right across from a large metro station. So I was there on the sidewalk, inserting my credit card and waiting for the magic to happen with the machine. And all of a sudden I felt a huge boom on my left shoulder. Some guy had rammed me. And I turned around physically. I couldn't stop that. The motion was that way. But I noticed immediately there were two guys, one that had hit me and one standing over more behind me and slightly to my right. Well, I could tell what was going on. So as the fellow on my right was reaching his hand to grab my card, I grabbed his wrist and then turned to face him directly. And we started talking in French, obviously, and it was getting a bit heated. And it was obvious the guy who had hit me initially was about ready to charge me. And just at that moment, a fellow walked up. Now, a nice looking guy, nothing special. And he just started talking very calmly. It was interesting in retrospect. But he started talking to me, asked me if I was all right, what was going on. He then turned and talked to the two fellas. And I was still holding on very tightly to the guy's wrist, so he wasn't going anywhere. So the person who popped in there and started talking said, well, let me see your hand, to the guy whose wrist I was holding. And he didn't have my card or anything. And he looked very directly at the guys and spoke very calmly and said to them, this is not going to work for you. You should leave now or I will call the police. And they just calmed down and left. And then he turned to me again calmly and said, you should check to see if you've got everything you're supposed to have. So I did, and I got my card out and got the money out. And I noticed he had walked. Now, the location of the bank was on a corner, and it was a busy intersection. And I was about 20 feet from the actual corner of the building. So as I was finishing my thing at the bank machine, I saw him walk to the corner and then turn left. So this was a matter of 2 seconds. I trotted out because I wanted to grab him and thank him for what he did. And so about 2 seconds after he turned the corner, I turned the corner and there was no one there. And there was no one there on the sidewalk for many feet in front of me, no one across the street, and there were no doors that he could have gone into. Now, I was kind of amazed by this, and I realized in thinking about it afterwards and talking with Liliane that I'm very convinced that that was my guardian angel. So I believe they exist. I believe the spirit guides and guardian angels are there. I believe they help create a beneficent environment for us, and they are there to help us move through life in the way that we're supposed to. So I'll turn it back over to Liliane.
And I thank the angel because I was able to buy my shoes. So I've decided, I've described intuition. Now I need to describe how we get it to work. Obviously, we can be aware of some signs and synchronicities using our classical 5 physical senses, but they are not sufficient by themselves, nor are they the only tools available. We also have non-physical or clair senses that help us perceive and receive the messages our spirit guides are trying to convey. I go into detail on this in my book. Various authorities identify a variety of clear senses, but I focus on 6 of them in my book. They include clairvoyance, or a clear non-physical sense of vision, clairaudience, or a clear non-physical sense of hearing, clairsentience, or a clear sense of feelings, and others that I don't have time to go into now. But the important takeaway is that intuition exists in all of us. Some of us have an innately stronger ability to use it. Others must work harder, but it is available to all of us. And the second takeaway is that just like exercising our muscles, we can exercise to enhance and expand our intuition. How? I believe we can do this by using a range of simple, practical exercises and meditation that embrace the fact that we are all connected with each other, nature, our higher self, and the universe. I want to emphasize one that really works for me. I kept journals most of my life, and like most people, I wrote them and then stuck them on a shelf. However, as I was recovering from a life-threatening medical event just a few years back, I decided to reread them and specifically pay attention to words like weird, strange, bizarre, or unusual, as they often describe an event I did not understand then. It allowed me to connect the dots and interesting occurrences that happen days, months, and even years apart. In that way, I was able to identify the signs and synchronicity that have blessed me since my earliest days on Earth. Now, often we're unaware of the gifts offered in the form of daily little miracles. I definitely was that way most of my earlier life. However, I was fortunate. I always innately listened to my intuition, which is the doorway to being open and aware. It led me to choose the right way to go when life was difficult and offered me many fascinating opportunities. Only later did I realize my spirit guides and angels were always present, helping me to find the right path and to stay out of harm's way. As we embrace the awareness of daily miracles, we open ourselves to a richer, more meaningful life. These moments are not random. They are orchestrated to help us face difficulties or to remind us of the beauty inherent in every day. We believe we are eternal beings of light, temporarily inhabiting these physical forms, and that our natural higher state is one of love and joy. We are surrounded at all times by positive support and guidance. We can achieve a life of greater joy and meaning by being open to our spirit guides and angels to see, interpret, and use their guidance. So open your mind, heart, and soul and pay attention. Remember, our spirit guides and angels are always there and ready to communicate with us, even if we are unaware of their presence or existence. We are never alone.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Liliane. So we thought we could go into the first round of breakouts now to talk with a couple of colleagues that are here on the call. And with the question I'm going to post here in the chat as well, so you can read it as well as hear it. Do you have an example from your own life of help coming from an unexpected place, or perhaps encountering a guide or a guardian, which could be something in nature as well as a person, not always just human, but might be an animal, might be the environment, weather, plants, as well as people. And of course, more than just getting robbed in Paris. I love that both your stories ended up being stories of how synchronicity helped you to avoid being robbed in Paris. So other stories welcome as well, not only just around pickpockets. Yeah, Brooke says she was also robbed in Paris. I think synchronicity did not save her there. And I have a similar kind of story to Liliane's about almost being robbed in Rome. So there you go. Yeah, Liliane.
If I have the time, I have a tiny little story about a plant. So it's very different. If I have the time to say it, it's short.
Sure. To share a short plant story, and then we'll go into our breakouts together.
Okay. I had a friend who was spending her holidays in the southern part of France in the Pyrenees, which is a mountainous area. One day she was hiking, and she's not the type, she's not somebody who believes in magic, etc. But one day she heard her name called, a little voice was calling her name right in the middle of nature in the mountain. But she went, wait a minute. You know, she was just wondering. She looked around, nobody was there, and it was calling her name. And finally, she pinpointed the source of the calling to a little flower. She thought she was a bit crazy. She said, that's ridiculous. But anyway, she picked up the flower. She went to a library when she went back to town. And she found out that flower, that plant, was actually used in the Middle Ages to make a certain type of medication. And that led her to study plant. And now she's not only a healer, but she also makes her own oil. So, and medication from plants. So that's quite interesting how she got pulled into that by just one little plant, and she thought she was crazy. So.
Very good. Yeah. And the communication from unexpected places is sometimes how it appears to us, that we hear something, as you were saying, like the clairsentience or audience or clairvoyance. So any of those kinds of stories that might occur to you, please share it with your colleagues in the breakouts, and you'll have 15 minutes. So each person has about 5 minutes to share. So please make sure to swap. I'll try to put a little message in the chat to remind you to switch so that each person has a chance to share. And then we'll come back and have a chance if any nice stories arise in the breakouts. A couple of people can share those if you'd like with the group when we come back. So we'll see you in 15 minutes, and we turn it over to all of you to share your own examples together.
I didn't get an invite. Is this our group, or did I just not get a pop-up?
Sorry, your connection might have been offline for when it got assigned.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because we have two others that have come in that weren't on when I was creating the breakout rooms. I'm trying to see if I can create another one. If not, we're the breakout.
Maybe that's how it's supposed to go, but
yeah. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to assign one. Yeah. So we still have a couple of people here with us. And Frank or Jane, are you there? Can come off of mute for us to hear you, or click on your video for us to see you.
I said to myself, I haven't been in a group with Juliet in a while. So before before this happened. So
there you go. There's the guidance. Well, Jane and Frank might be with us, or they might be away from their devices. We never know.
This is how it's, I'm plugged in. This is how it's supposed to be. So.
This is how it is. Yeah. So tell me, I can remove the pen from my video. Yes. There we go. So
and this is on recording now for the main thing. Can we turn that off?
Yeah. Yep. We're resuming. Gonna bring our host back in. Does anybody have a very strong desire to share something that arose during their breakout session? We could take about maybe 5 minutes if we want to share anything from that, and then we'll hear a bit more from David after that. Or we'll go right to David if everybody is content to wait. I can hear somebody's water. I'm going to try to go to where we mute everybody again. There we go. We always get background noises when we have this many people living their lives online. We get lots of interesting things. My dogs like to make an appearance sometime. Great. So I see one hand. So we'll hear from Nancy, and then we'll go to David. All right. Nancy, share something with us.
Well, I don't know. Talk about a coincidence. So there were just two people in my group, myself and Marguerite from Sweden. And right at the very end, Jane pops up, and we go, "Oh, Jane." She goes, "Well, I've been waiting to be let in." She goes, "It was just spinning and spinning and spinning." And Jane's the person who told me about this. This is the first time I've been here. Jane got put in our group of all, out of 41 people. And so just wanted to share that coincidence, which seems really bonkers. But thank you. This is great.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I stayed in this sort of main room rather than going to a breakout. A couple people were offline. Their computers were offline when the Zoom program assigned breakouts. So I had and Brooke and Frank sort of left with me. And Brooke was like, "Yeah, I'd had a thought. I haven't been in a breakout with Juliet for a while." And then somehow randomly she was in the main room with me and not assigned. So we got to create that as our breakout. It's amazing. I do feel that we have some lovely Coincidence Cafe guides and guardians that are here with us in this gathering, because we do find new coincidences emerging between us and amongst us and because of us, which is just delightful. So yeah, let's take another minute or two. We hear from Chris and then maybe from Annie. Try to keep it to only like 1 or 2 minutes per person so we get to David's remarks. Chris.
Hi. So my mom had never had seizures before. I was her primary caregiver. She had dementia. And the earlier that day, a nurse had come by and got a prescription ordered for something unrelated. The medication my husband had to go and get from the pharmacy. And while he was away, she was up and she had a grand mal seizure for the first time in her life. And I was holding her. I tried to sit her, but I couldn't. She was rigid. And I was holding her as strongly as I could, but my arms were giving out. I placed a call. We had a good community support system and network, and they were trying to get help to me as fast as possible. But my arms started to shake. I knew help was on the way, and my arms were shaking violently, and I was about to drop her when I felt my dead brother, died in his 40s, his arms around both of us and held us until help arrived. And my arms stopped shaking, and I was confident we were okay because he was there with us. And then when help arrived and everything got happened, my husband brought in the prescription, turned out to be also, besides what it had been ordered for, it was for seizures, and she had never had seizures.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Annie, how about you? Oh, come off mute, Annie. Annie, click on mute. We can't hear you yet.
A whole bunch of different things. I've been making shells with polymer clay for a long time. I'm going to be in the Sanibel Shell Fair in March. Turns out one of the people in the group, the breakout, lives on Naples, and that's just by Sanibel. But so many things have taken place in the last 3 weeks to make sure I know I'm supposed to go. My exhibit is going to be these. I don't know if you can see them.
No, you turn your camera off, Annie. Click on video to start your video up again.
Oh, okay. Video.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. To make a long story short, just lots of assurances. And Liliane, you have cranes in your house, and my mom has cranes. And my mom is the one that helped me to start to make the shells. And we talk about a guide for me to set up my science exhibit. It was a reminder of my mom, who's been gone for 12 years. So just enormous amount of coincidence right now to keep going.
Wonderful. Thank you, Annie. Yep. So often these are the signs to you're on the right path, or don't give up, or keep going. You're going to be okay. Bernhard and Brian, can I invite you to share a little bit later, so we let David get to his portion of time, and please hang on to your thoughts. Don't lose them. We'd love to hear from you in a little while. David, I'm gonna put it to you, back to you here, and pin you again and let you share with the group.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm the other half with Liliane. She calls me her CEO. She's the author, artist, everything else, and I do the business side of things. So CEO stands for Chief of Everything Else Officer. That's kind of what I do. But I'll share with you in a minute why this is all a very relevant realm to me. In her presentation, Liliane briefly explored what spirit guides and angels are and the benefits that come from being open to contact and communicate with them. But why does connecting often seem to be so hard to do? And why are we often unable to find the pathway to higher awareness and guidance that we innately know is there? During these next few minutes, I'll identify some of the key issues or blockages that typically prevent us from receiving the benevolent spiritual support and guidance that is always available to us. And I will briefly highlight ways that Liliane has found to clear those blockages. Now, you might ask, why am I speaking here today? For decades, I've been a consciousness explorer and mindfulness practitioner. Liliane and I are on the same path. I've been able to grow spiritually through my own studies. Plus, I've been able to watch over Liliane's shoulder during her years of extensive formal training and as she matured her expertise as a practicing energy healer. Beyond this, I've come to believe that my purpose in life at this age is to support and help others achieve as good a life as possible. This strong desire has evolved primarily from my extensive experience in planning and running worldwide humanitarian and disaster relief operations during my years in the Air Force and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. Now, as to blockages, we should first ask ourselves, what are blockages? What causes them? And why do they exist? Identifying them is fairly simple, but resolving them can be very challenging. Next, what is being blocked? Simply, we are blocking our intuition, as Liliane talked about, our link to higher forces that cannot be seen, but can directly and immediately affect us. As to what causes blockages, there's lots of discussions about this, but today I'll rely on Liliane's assessment. Due to time constraints, I'll focus on only those that I feel are the key ones. To start with, the vast majority of blockages emanate from two core human attributes, fear and ego. I support the view that many authorities, many other authorities, that certain blocks are generated by fear. And I believe that fear comes from two primary sources. Both can result in the classic fight, flight, or freeze response. The first is fear generated by a physical source, typically caused by an actual or potential action that threatens our life. For example, someone pointing a gun at you or a bear charging out of the woods at you, that's physical fear. The second is fear caused by a perceived threat to your ego. Your ego wants to be in absolute control at all times. This creates a challenge because mindfulness and intuition are often the enemies of ego. Awareness, for example, requires the absence of ego. So ego constantly uses all kinds of tricks to block you when you attempt to engage or enhance your spiritual awareness. Now, with these two as the core, I'll briefly identify some of the other blockages that result from or are motivated by fear and ego. First, a big one is hatred or anger. When we are very disturbed by strong negative emotions, it becomes impossible to think clearly. It makes us blind and deaf, rendering us incapable to see the signs and synchronicities that surround us. Another one is self-doubt or imposter syndrome. When we feel inadequate or unworthy, or when we don't believe we deserve what's offered to us, our intuition can be clouded. We may doubt the existence of spirit guides and of our abilities to see and interpret signs or synchronicities. And this creates a self-fulfilling negative reality for us. Next, a lack of self-trust and low self-esteem. If we don't trust ourselves or lack confidence in our intuitive abilities, it's difficult to see and hear what our intuition is trying to convey. It's very important and empowering to realize that everyone has the capacity to activate and to enhance their intuition. Another one, depression. When we are so full of anguish or sorrow, or we are disconnected from reality, we feel helpless in front of the challenges we face. We might fall into depression. This creates a thick gray cloud between us and our spirit guides. Now, focusing only on the past or future is a big block. Our intuition can be activated only when we open our hearts and our minds. In other words, when we're in the present. This is difficult if we're constantly reliving our past traumas or emotional wounds, or we project ourselves into a bleak, uncertain future. Preconditioning is another one. Childhood experiences or conditioning from social or family institutions, many of which we have experienced ourselves, lead to negative beliefs or closed minds. And often this prevents us from acknowledging our intuition. It's crucial to release these negative beliefs. And last but not least, there's the disconnection from nature and spirituality. It's crucial that we recognize the interconnection of all things. Spiritually, we are all connected. When we're detached from nature and spirituality, it can hinder our intuitive connections. It's essential to acknowledge that fostering a deep connection with nature can enhance our intuitive bonds. So if you think back, I'm sure you can recognize how some of these blockages have prevented you from taking the steps necessary to create and maintain openness. And that's what we'll talk about in the breakout sessions in a moment. So how do you clear these blockages? Liliane and I believe that simple, practical, focused exercises and meditations are the best way to develop and grow your ability to see, interpret, and use guidance from higher sources. Now, detailed protocols and complicated processes are not necessary, and frankly, turn many people off, including us. Instead, we encourage doing activities that foster direct, deeper connection with our spirit guides and angels. In part 3 of Winks from Above, Liliane lays out a series of activities to open, reopen, or keep open our senses, both physical senses and non-physical or clair senses, as Liliane referred to them. I don't have time in this session to go into detail, so I will merely highlight the ones that I feel work best for Liliane and her followers. I'll tell you how to learn more about this in a couple of minutes. One way to break blockages is through dance meditation. Use movement to release inhibitions, open awareness, and enter meditative states. Another is expressing gratitude. Many of us do that every day. Taking time to acknowledge how grateful you are for everything in your life, both the positive and the negative, centers you and increases mindfulness. Active meditation, which is different from dance meditation, which is really moving while meditating, heightens your ability to focus and center. Dreams, a lot of us deal with this. Engaging in your subconscious as you dream. You can prompt your subconscious to find answers to questions or connect with new ideas or to connect dots that you just don't understand in your conscious realm. Also, engaging with your inner child. This is a big one for the person next to me. Playfulness brings joy and helps remove many blockages. We have a 5-year-old granddaughter that goes right along with that statement. Focusing on and sharing positivity. Most of you are familiar with the term law of attraction. This process uses focusing on and sharing positively as a guiding principle. Something as simple as building a vision board. Imagining and then physically constructing these will help you define and realize your goals. And finally, journaling, which Liliane talked at some depth about. Journaling captures your thoughts in raw form. These often lead you to truths, maybe years later, that otherwise you would never have seen. Now, I need to stress that none of these that I've just mentioned are a one and done situation. Being open and developing awareness requires practice and consistency. As Liliane says, we have to give time to time. However, when we clear our blockages, we are then able to notice all the help that our spirit guides provide us, and we can feel empowered to walk more clearly and confidently on our life path, and our lives truly become more joyful and meaningful. Now, and here is a plug, sorry about this. If you're interested in learning more about signs and synchronicities, as well as blockages and how to clear them, I invite you to pick up Liliane's Winks from Above and its free companion workbook. And if you're interested in going even farther, we are preparing an 8-week internet course that will do a deep dive on the messages and training in Winks. Watch Liliane's website and social media for specific information and dates of availability. That concludes my formal comments. The last thing I'd want to say, I know this is called a coincidence cafe, and we use typically spirituality. Well, we've talked with the ultimate source on in this, Bernie. He lives here in Charlottesville with us, and he's here in the mob. And he have agreed that we can use synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence, and there's no harm by that. So we're all in the same group hugging together. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, David. Well, I think we'll maybe do a little bit of a shorter breakout. Give me just a moment. I'm going to put that together. The question we thought about, I'm posting in the chat so you can see it. Thinking about this notion of blocks. Was there one or maybe no more than two that you might want to reflect on with your partners that you're either experiencing now or have noticed in the past? And, are there strategies you've already been using, maybe something you knew before this call, or Are there new strategies that you're thinking about using that you heard? Because your friends in the breakout room are very likely to be able to reflect back to you and may have some experience and some of their own insight here. And Chris, I see your hand. Is it a question about the breakouts?
Yes, it is. The last time we had a breakout group, you said something, but I couldn't read it fast enough and it didn't show up in chat. Can you?
Yeah, and that's a Zoom function, not one I can control.
Okay.
It was just the notice to make sure to move to the next speaker. So
Oh,
I
okay.
guess next time I'll just post next speaker now, and just everyone please know that just means it's a heads up on the time, because we can get caught up in our stories and forget to let the others have a chance. And so I'm just trying to keep track of the time. There, let me see. And since we're moving along here in our time together, this one will be 10 minutes with an extra 1 minute countdown to come back into the main room. And then we'll see you and we'll all have some time together to the half hour, whatever hour it is for you in the day, where we formally stop. And we usually go a few minutes over, about 15 minutes over. So if you can stay past the end of the 90 minutes, that's fine. And then if you need to go right at 90 minutes, we'll make sure to come to a good stopping point then. So let's talk a little bit about this notion of blocks and how to remove them. And we'll see all of you in 11 minutes. All right.
Oh no.
Welcome, welcome. All right, so we'd love to hear from a couple of people, and we had a few that had some thoughts to share before and didn't get a chance. So feel free to use the raise your hand, or you can actually wave at me from your camera, and I'll try to address things. Bernhardt, I saw you before. Do you want to come back up? And Brian, let's do Brian first, since he had his hand raised before.
Yes, I had a question, if it's okay to ask Chris this. She mentioned a situation involving, was it a parent with a grand mal seizure?
Yes, my mother.
And I was wondering if your mother reported seeing auras before her seizure.
No, but I'm a paramedic and many of my patients did.
Yeah, I'm more
My
of
mom
that.
had dementia. So she was like straddling between life and death the whole time. And it was fascinating the things she said and did.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. And I think I saw Daisy. Daisy, did you want to come off mute and share something with us?
I was in the middle of the sentence. I just so passionate. I want to continue.
It was a cliffhanger. It was really, I got to hear it.
Okay. All right. Bring it to us, Daisy.
Okay. Anyway, well, in Chinese, when in our group, when we were sharing, something happened to one of the participants. And so all of a sudden, my mind comes up a saying in Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching really is mindfulness without attachment. What that means is whatever happened to you, if you keep thinking of whatever happened, is you are creating that again and again and again. So unless you want that creating in your life. So if you something like I don't like whatever I don't like to happen again, I don't even think. I just think something that I want it happen because I'm creating it's a cause and effect. I'm creating my effect from now. I'm creating my effect and now. I'm creating my result and now. So that I just want to finish it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bernhard, did you want to come and share with us from earlier? You're
Yes.
still very good. Come share.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to talk to Ken Harris, but I really like to share this again. David told a few things about getting connected again by doing meditation, dancing, and all that. That's what I wrote down some notes. And my part of getting connected is a special thing again. During the pandemic, I felt a bit disconnected to people I was close to and to some ideologic parts, whatever. And then there is a thing what came into my life about 7-8 weeks ago. I felt a strong wish to write down names of my coming children. There is no more planning or family planning. My daughter has grown up. She's 24. What is this hand? Okay. But somehow I had to write down all these names, and it ended up writing down 120 names. So then I thought, what is this? Will I be a Mormon or a Sheik in my next life or whatever? For what reason do I do this? And all of a sudden I realized that whenever I met or am meeting anybody who is on this list, I feel have a warm feeling. I feel connected again. I feel close. I feel familiar with people. And somehow I realized that I'm connected again. I found my inner feeling to other people again.
Very good. Thank you for sharing, Bernhard.
Thanks.
David and Liliane, do you want to reflect a little bit back from the group and the shares that we've heard? You're still on mute, so be sure to come off mute.
Liliane has this monster console that I've got a regular little laptop. She's got a command console, so I have to move around a bit. Sorry about that. One thing I'd like to reflect a little bit on, and it's something Chris and we were talking about during the breakout. A lot of what we talked about today is the positive side of things. And there's a reality too, in that when you look at synchronicities and the messages that the spirit guides might be giving to you, sometimes you think you want something and you don't get it. And some people get frustrated by that. And then even worse, sometimes bad things happen to people. And we've known people who've gotten cancer and people who've lost family members and dear close ones. And instead of allowing my feeling, and this is strictly my approach to it, instead of allowing your ego to take over. Now, there's going to be the normal grief period. There's no question about that. You can't disallow that. But instead of dwelling on it, as Daisy said, you don't want to make that your total reality, your total truth. When we talk about spirit guides and spirituality and synchronicity, we acknowledge that when bad things happen, the way we try to approach it is, what is the lesson learned here? Why did this happen to us? And what am I supposed to get out of it? With Liliane, she almost died. She was in the hospital for 30 days. It kind of came to her that, wow, there are things that I wasn't even thinking about. And it brought on a whole new life approach to her, similar to me. So I want to leave that as another facet of what we call synchronicity, that acknowledges that it's not all happiness and joy, but it's important that those things that I talked about, remembering joy, building joy into your life. Joy isn't affected by outside activity. Joy is only internal. Anything can happen to you and you can still have joy, even though you're surrounded by pain. And this is a crucial reality of dealing with synchronicity. It's searching through that, dealing with the pain, but also looking to see what the larger purposes are. We've said very briefly in our notes, but it went quickly, the spirit guides, we feel, are there to help you on your life journey. Now, you don't know what your life journey is. We don't. Nobody does. The spirit guides do. You can call it God, you can call it universe, whatever you want to. But there is a sense that there is a path for you. You can deviate from that path and impacts happen. But the fact that there will be positives, there will be negatives are the realities. It's how you deal with them, how you acknowledge and accept and keep in you the joy that lets you get through these things.
Yeah.
So,
and I might have to add something. The experience I had, if I had not changed my mind, I would never have connected again with my street guide. I was very sick for a year and a half, and nobody could tell me what to do, what I had, etc., until an event happened, and I decided to ask again, what is this illness trying to show me? And gradually, I started to feel stronger and felt, okay, well, if I have 6 months, if I have 1 year, if I have a year, 2 years, what do I do? What are my priorities? And when I was starting to think that way, certainly signs started to reappear. And it was fabulous. I felt connected again. And within 6 months, I had found the right doctor to address the problem I had. I had a surgery that had never been done in the world. In the hospital, they gave me the most beautiful room. I didn't ask for it, etc. I had synchronicities and beautiful happening every time, every day, while I was going through the process of healing. So the fact that changed my way of thinking helped me to reconnect. If I had stayed the same way, I would have gone deeper and deeper into depression, and I might not be here to talk with you. So, or I might be disfigured entirely. So I want to say that there are ways sometimes. It doesn't happen right away. For me, 6 months later, I was free of anything and back here. So just want to point that out.
Thank you, thank you. And we're just coming on to the 90-minute mark of our session. So I posted the website to the Wings from Above book for reaching David and Liliane. So there's a contact form on the website for those of you that wanted to get in touch with them or to order the book or learn more about things. We're so grateful to have you as our guest hosts today. We appreciate your expertise and your company, and all of you on the call, the same to you. We appreciate your expertise and your life experiences, your questions, and your company as we're on this big adventure, this joyful journey. I love what David was saying. In the midst of any circumstance, we can find gratitude and joy. It's always available to us. And we'll stay on for a few more minutes for those of you that need to go. I did also post the link back to our website, just in case you need that. And we are a nonprofit, so we're always accepting donations, and it helps us keep all of these programs open and free. And so if you would like to make a link to donate, it's on the website in the top menu bar. And we'll see you again for our next event. Will be February's Coincidence Cafe, actually. And then we'll have the speaker series event with Anna Helene after that. So those are our next steps set together as a community. And thank you again for being here. For those that want to stay on and chat a bit more, let's do so for a few more minutes here. So I see Kirby's hand up. Kirby.
Hi, I have a question. I have a question that I always wanted to find out is that how to scan my awareness, because it seems like there is certain things that how the universe is going to pick, and it's going to be anything, and it's going to say, okay, I'm going to pick a cow, and you're going to see that cow, and then that's going to be your synchronicity. And then I know that, like we like to add a lot of meaning, but it seems like to me like it's just a natural thing. So what I'm trying to ask is there a possible way of scanning your environment to pick it up to see what it's going to pick, because it seems like it's a random thing that it's going to scan your environment, and then you're going to have a type of synchronicity. I mean, sometimes it means something and then sometimes it doesn't, but every day I get up, like I'm scanning, and then I'm I'm taking notes, and I'm saying to myself, okay, what is how the universe is going to pick? And it's very, very strange for me. Like, it's picking very, very, very strange things. And I just hope one day that we all could find out how and why that it picks that a certain thing. You don't know.
Yeah, we got a few more hands up. I will say, Kirby, for your question, Bernie has sometimes talked about maybe there's an Earth Coincidence Control Office, which would be the acronym ECHO. So maybe you got to get the keys, you got to get a promotion and get, working at Earth Coincidence Control Office and ask ECHO, hey, how do you decide on these things, guys? This seems pretty weird. I will say, once you notice a type of coincidence that has happened, it helps bring it more into your possible awareness in the future. And it's just like you buy a Jeep and then it turns out everybody on the road drives Jeeps. You see them everywhere. So you have a certain type of coincidence. Brooke and I, we talked about coincidences with birds, and you have a meaningful encounter with an eagle or with an egret, and then you're more primed to notice those encounters again in the future. But it can come from left field, and definitely it changes up. So I don't think we fully know the how and the why of it, but there are patterns or trends. And one of the things we've thought about for research is all of us keeping records and journaling about our coincidence stories, because maybe each person has a tendency to a certain group of coincidence types or coincidence bearers, whether it's the cow or the bird or a person, or it's around getting robbed in Europe, whatever it is, like there may be things that become patterns. And is it related to whether we're introverts or extroverts? Does that influence the type of coincidences we experience? Is it related to astrological, data about us? And there's so many things it could potentially be related to. So that's kind of part of where we're going to be going in the future, is to think about these trends. So thank you for your question, Kirby.
Can I respond to Kirby?
Can I chime in?
And to add a little to what Juliet was saying, we don't know why. You can make up your own particular way of looking at the world, or you can use your own particular way of looking at the world. But we're encouraging you to write down your coincidence stories, because we are beginning to use artificial intelligence to look for patterns in coincidence stories. For example, I have a bunch of stories to use. Liliane's book has a lot of stories in them. So we're trying to be able to use AI to look for patterns of the way you experience coincidences, synchronicities, that is your kind of fingerprint for synchronicities. And then maybe match you with people who have a similar spread of synchronicity patterns. Bottom line, please journal in a way that we can take from a Word document and put it into a spreadsheet.
And Brooke, I think you wanted to respond directly to this.
Well, I want to respond to Kirby and again, what my thoughts on it, which again, obviously we all have our own different ways of interpreting this stuff, is just, I think Kirby, you can wake up in the morning and pick a random thing, like a cow, like you said, or whatever, right? And for me, I feel like it's not the picking the random thing, I feel like it's co-creating. So you picking the random thing is your element of the control, but then the scanning piece you gotta let go of, because you gotta let the cow come to you. That's the other half of the co-creating. So you for me, that's how it works. Okay, do you know what I'm saying? So it's that dance. You can pick something random if you want, and it will come, but you have to let go of how and when it's coming.
That's absolutely right. And Daisy told a great butterfly story where she was focusing on butterfly eggs and didn't understand them particularly. And then a butterfly laid some eggs on a leaf right in front of her.
And I have a butterfly sneakers.
There we go, the butterflies. I think we got Brian next, and then Chris again, and then Delia.
So much of what we've been talking about in terms of signs and synchronicities relate to being in a flow state. And Kirby, it wouldn't surprise me that you see symbols and signs when you're in your own flow state. And sometimes they can be interpreted as symbols and signs from a higher reality. They may have some universal meaning. You can search that out and see what you can dig up on that. Animals Speak by, I think Ted Andrews comes to mind as one particular explanation, and that's something that I use. I get signs and symbols all the time, not necessarily cows, but maybe one of these days. So Liliane, I had a question for you. I know within my own experience, my intuition sometimes comes and goes like a distant AM radio wave in the night. And I was wondering if you experience something similar. Does it come and go, or is it fairly steady for you?
And come off mute, because you're still on mute, so.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yes, it comes and goes. There are times, especially like when I was ill and I couldn't find a solution, it was gone entirely. The more I became depressed, the less I had communication. It's when you reopen that suddenly you have more freedom, and you start to see signs around you. You see or hear, or you get signs, you understand. But there are times when synchronicity happens so many times a day. It's it becomes normal.
You're in the flow.
Yeah, but there are times when I don't see anything, and I know that I have to change my ways because I'm getting depressed, or in a bad place. So it's a sign for me.
If I can say one quick thing too, the way Liliane and I approach what the spirit guides do, there is no time space where they exist, that dimension, that reality, that realm, whatever you want to call it. So sometimes we're expecting for them to respond by 10 after the hour, and it's not relevant. They bring out their messages, they bring out their signs to you when it makes sense, again, going from their perspective of your life journey.
And sometimes you expect signs to come under a different form, and you look for that, and no, they appear in something totally different, and we miss that. So that's why it's very important to remain extremely, extremely open.
Right. One thing, and then I have to go. Expectation and attachment is the enemy of being in the flow state.
Yes.
So yeah, in my experience, it's really, you can't attach yourself to anything, and it doesn't work that way. If anything, you get the opposite of what you anticipate. Anyway, it was so nice to see you all. I've got to get going. Until next time.
Till next
Hey, my
time.
man. All right, have a good one.
All right, so Chris and then Delia.
Let Delia go first, please, Juliet. She hasn't spoken yet.
Sure, Delia.
Okay, yes, I'm very happy to share about the scanning part of what we just addressed, because I have discovered and uncovered how scanning works for me. And it is nature. It's certainly nature. And I think every person can identify with this, because I scan water. And ultimately now I have come to live for the last 14 months on water. From 5 windows in my condo in St. Petersburg, Florida, I see water all day long. So, I spend a lot of time, because water for me is purification. We are water personified. Dr. Emoto came here 4 times. He loves St. Petersburg. The power of water. I saw those water crystals on the DC Metro 20 years ago. So that's a pattern. And I would think that if scanning becomes something to key in on synchronicities, I would certainly suggest using water nature. Every time I look out the window, the water has changed. There's so many dimensions, it's never the same, absolutely, moment to moment. And I know that I pretty much totally water. So I use it to really meditate on purification. It's not about language or words. It's really about resonance, vibration, and vibration and frequency. And that is exactly what scanning water does for me.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can't hear you. Can't hear.
Juliet, you're muted.
Sorry, my dog sometimes barks. Let's. I try to ride my intuition if I feel like while someone's speaking, my dog is about to bark, and go back on mute. Anyway.
Precognition.
Delia, can I just say my mom, who's in Florida, sent me a photo of the water this morning, and she never sends me that stuff. And it, so your story just, yeah. And also your last name, Sky. Juliet and I were talking about Sky Island. That's her background. And that was cool too. So thank you.
Yeah, and you have a crane or an egret.
And we were talking about egrets, and then you showed the egret statue. Juliet and I were talking about egrets. So
and Liliane has 2 cranes right behind her. So we're having a very crane egret water kind of connection right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in front of me right here.
I love it. I love it.
I see Alexis also. Alexis, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you want to come off mute and share?
Sure. I have a question for Liliane. You mentioned that you felt somewhat drawn towards healing and, becoming a healer, but you resisted that until you were in your 40s, I think you said. Were you in a separate type of lifestyle before you made that transition? Can you tell us more about what that was like?
I did not want to become a healer because I was raised by somebody who had that capability, but was using it the wrong way. She was on the dark side. She's the person who raised me, and I could see that. Now, there was a healer down the street, and I always went to see him. So I knew very well what healer was. And when I was asked to follow that direction, I was afraid to have enough of my grandmother in me that I could fall into the dark side. That's why I hesitated. Until, and that's when signs are coming up, and sometimes you get sick for a reason, I refused to follow that path twice. On the 3rd occasion, it was after an illness. I went to see my healer who encouraged me to become a healer. And he said, I hope you understand. And I said, I do. And in 5 days, when the doctor had tried for 6 months to heal me, he did. And I said, I'm going to become a healer as well. That's when I decided that, okay, I'm ready. And right away, I found the right teacher. I found the right place to go. And I was fully ready. So it took a while, but you have to be ready. If there are doubts, it's a very difficult, it's not easy because there is so much you have to do. Learning the technique of healing was very easy for me. It's like I've done that in a previous time. What was difficult is change me to become a healer, because you have to get rid of so much. You can't have that between you and the person you work with. So that was the most difficult. And that's why I didn't want to go there. I was too afraid.
Thank you for sharing.
I hope you will go that way.
Oh, I'm not a healer.
But you're asking a question. You might have maybe a little
maybe, but in a way, it's reassuring to know that there were 3 opportunities through your lifespan And so honestly, as a person who's kind of in the beginning trying to navigate the journey, it's reassuring to know that whatever I'm meant to do will continually find me. And when I'm ready, that's when it will ultimately, come to fruition with ease.
But be very careful there, because sometimes it is really something on your life path and you say, no, no. And then the third time for me, I was very ill. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't put the two together until I saw my healer again. So anyway, I just want to mention that. Just observe very carefully. Are you ready, or is it possible to postpone, etc.? Once you are offered an opportunity you would love to take, but you don't dare to take the first step.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of us who've seen kind of catastrophic synchronicities come together. As Liliane mentioned, sometimes an illness is itself a sign of the avoidance, or perhaps to help lead us to the new opportunity. But, we have those amongst us who've experienced, losses of job or deaths in their life, in their loved ones, or fires that, sometimes if we resist the signs and symbols that were leading us down a certain path, we can have a little bit of a catastrophe try to shake us awake. So it seems like some coincidences and synchronicities are a little bit of a tap on the shoulder, and others kind of hit you upside the head.
Yeah. Yes. Right on.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay. I think that it was meaningful that you shared the complete story of your experience, because I think that a lot of the time when we get in this think positive, focus on the positive, and try to create and holding ourselves responsible for trying to create our reality, sometimes we can look at negative experiences or suffering and blame ourselves. And so I think it was important that you highlighted that suffering is part of the human experience at some point in time for every one of us, but to be able to kind of consciously recognize that and know that it's also part of it, and that things aren't always going to be glorious and phenomenal at every point in time. So I think that was just important to highlight and recognize as well, because I think that allows us to have greater compassion for ourselves, and it makes it easier to move through those challenging times. So thank you.
Thank you for your question. Also, Alexis, I needed that question. And that answer. So thanks.
And Chris has had her hand up for a while. So let's go back to you, Chris.
Trying to be good. Okay. So, I don't want to hog time, but my mind is just overflowing with questions and curiosities about all these things that are being said. But back to Kirby. Kirby kept saying it, referring to the universe. Why does it pick these things and put the cow in front of me and that sort of thing? And what I wanted to mention is that a tool that I use for unblocking is curiosity. I choose, based on my curiosity, the things that pique my interest. And those are the directions that I follow, and that brings me more open to receiving things that are meaningful. Near-death experience, for example, is absolutely fascinating to me. And so that's where I look, and that's where I find answers, and things just start falling into place from every direction. It's amazing. Oh, and Brooke, I loved your input.
All right, thank you.
I'll shut up.
Thank you. I don't know which input, but to Kirby's question. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, well, we're about heading towards our two hours together, which is always a good to break then or before then. I love the passion and enthusiasm connection we're having here today. I think any closing thoughts from our dear co-hosts today, from David and Liliane?
You have any thoughts?
Yes, I just wanted to share something that can be useful, and it's regarding water, since water came into the conversation. Yes, water is very powerful. We're part water, we are connected with water. And I came up with something years ago. I had to paint my son's office. And I thought, wait a minute, paint has a lot of water. what if I put in that water love, the feeling that he needs, everything that he needs right there. So I worked on that. And when I was painting his walls, it was still there. And I didn't tell him. He entered the room and said, oh, I feel so relaxed. So I did that for my granddaughter. They love it too. But it's something easy to do. If you paint your room, why not immerse what you have? Ask your spirit guide to come and surround you. And once you spray the paint, you still keep that, and it's beautiful. And it was very well received. So I'm just passing that on. Why not? Remember, we're never alone.
And Maureen, I see your hand. We haven't heard from you yet today. Welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to tag on to Liliane's story. And I know we're trying to close, but this is really, really important related to what she just said. I had a bathroom that I didn't like. It was in a corner in my family room. It was always cold. It had a little mold on the shower when I bought it. And I just had this yucky feeling about this bathroom, and I would never use it, even though the kids would use it. And one day we had a flood, and that was the room that the flood came in. And when we did all the cleanup, we took the wallpaper off and stripped everything down, I thought, I am going to paint on the walls. So I wrote the words, this is a lovely little bathroom. This bathroom is perfect for the family room. This bathroom is so nice and warm and welcoming. Okay, so I put all that on the wall, and then we put the wallpaper over it. And every time a guest to my home used that bathroom, they would come back into the kitchen and say, that's the loveliest little bathroom. It's so warm and inviting. And it was so funny because they were literally reading the wall, even though they couldn't see it with their 3D eyes.
Yeah, but you're wonderful. This is wonderful. There is so much more we can do, but we don't think about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good stopping point for today. What a rich and absolutely lovely discussion it's been. Thank you, everyone, for being part of it. And we will see you again for the next gathering. And we'll be posting this to our YouTube channel. And I'll send out an email to everyone that has the link when it gets posted. And yeah, we'll keep going. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, David and Liliane, for creating such a lovely session for us today.
Bye-bye.
All right,